can't compare any of those graphical games to the MUDs because I don't have time. If I have time to get online, I got time for Batmud and to check my Hotmail. That's it. The future of MUDs. How do we compete with these with these online? They got slick graphics. They got tens of thousands of users. They seem to have everything going for them. But what I found was that with our MUD, it's got a sterling reputation. It's consistently entertained for 15 years now, coming up in 5 days. And I found that everybody who goes off to play StarCraft or World of Wonders or Asherton's Call or this, they always come back. And I don't know what appeal that is other than my own perspective of the enduring strength of the relationships that people have and the complexity of our game. I played about 15 different MUDs over the years, but I've only played BAT for the last 12. And I have gone back and looked at some of the earlier MUDs I played, and I just cry because I see nothing's been updated. The quests are still the same. I could run myself from level 1 to 20 in a matter of hours, what used to take me months before. And I would get frustrated by the actual elements of the library where, you know, if you would say go east, and there wasn't an east to go to in a certain room, the response back would be something like, what? And it was just weird after all these years to see that nobody ever took those and made better commands like you can't go that way or try another direction, something. So I don't know how it is that we're able to compete, yet we are. Our subscription, our user base is so strong. And when Batmud does have financial needs to upgrade servers, the response from the players is swift and generous. In fact, sometimes they holler when we don't have an open donation period because they want to give some money and get a game resource from it. As I said, I think our game is the most difficult. It's the guild system is complex. The fact that the players can create so much within it instead of just being limited to what the other guy coded for you, drop this, light this, hand this to that monster. And then these other online games tend to be trend-based, and this is what I was saying earlier. I see people go and run off and do the new exciting thing and then come back to us. And maybe that's a good thing, that it gives them a break away from being with us, and they won't get frustrated of having to do the same things over and over, and then they come back rejuvenated like a sailor coming home to port.
Right. Now, in many cases, these MUD bases or the base code for MUDs are publicly available. They're like open source. So it's pretty easy for anybody to just go and download a copy of a MUD and start running their own MUD. However, with as different entertainment industries are becoming more and more interested in running their own massive games, it's becoming increasingly difficult to really like efficiently market your own new upstart MUD. And I myself very subjectively predict that it's not maybe a good idea to start your own MUD unless you have a really good idea about what makes it unique, what makes it possible to sell it. Batmud is in a lucky position that we already have a very stable player base. We have daily some 2,000, a little over 2,000 different players logging on, and we have some 100 developers working on the game. All right. The fact that MUDs are free is a major reason for their position on the periphery of the internet. They don't look professional. They have no advertising budget. Well, Batmud has a small advertising budget, but still. They have high barriers to entry, and magazines won't review them. The fact that they have a direct connection to the imagination ensures that they can never die, so long as people have imaginations. And this is true for Batmud as well. We are constantly expanding on the world, creating new content, creating new challenges for people. And basically, we invite anybody to try us out, check us out.
And we are indebted to our players. Without our players, it would just be throwing a party that no one attends. So we wanted to thank you and invite you to come and stay and figure out what tackles Pearl does. Thank you. Oh, any questions? Go ahead.
Here's a kind of a software development question. How do you manage a code base that large? I mean, are there tools built into the MUD driver itself to manage such a large number of source files? Or, not having developed a MUD myself for an LP, what tools do you use to manage that massive amount of code?
Well, first of all, this is a bit of a technical explanation. The MUD itself includes like a virtual state machine, and we allow different developers, we give them different kind of access what they can do with their code. So there is like an abstract layer that protects, let's say, stupid developers from breaking the actual game. And since this is all like interpreted, it's fairly easy to develop one of these like security layers around it. As far as managing the source code itself, we are using CVS for example, versioning control, and we have limited which directories, for example, some specific developers can access files in and so forth. So, but even still, there is a certain sense of controlled chaos, even the development of the game.
And what's that element? The term escapes me, where they've also compartmentalized a number of the things. Like I was messing around with making clothing the other day, and I can't think of what that term, I want to call it continent. Well, but there's something in that but it's that sort of thing where I was trying to make clothing for a bunch of people, just generating it. And in the old days, you would have done that manually, and if you had done it wrong, you could have risked imperiling the resources of the game. What?
Inheritance?
Yeah, and what they've done now is they've broken up a whole bunch of things where you just simply inherit an item that already exists, the code is working, it's clean, efficient, and then you can make cosmetic changes to it. And this ensures a consistency throughout the MUD. Objects that you create aren't going to break it. We used to have, it was a big hazard in the old days, of somebody making something spiffy that suddenly calls are spiraling out of control, you guys are lagged, and the red light comes on.
Okay, here's another technical software development question. What kind of, does the MUD driver again have like a built-in database system, or what kind of database software do you use on the back end to manage all those objects?
Well, the MUD driver itself has a small built-in database, or it actually has a table structure that allows us to store data. But in addition to this, we use the MySQL database in the back end, and we have a fairly advanced way of using MySQL, since we replicate all the MySQL data in real time to a multitude of servers. For example, we have a web server that runs our discussion groups, and those are like mirrored in real time from the actual game itself. But basically, we run MySQL in the back end.
Yes, Karen?
What kind of server power requirements would something of the magnitude of BatMud require?
Well, I think we started out with a Spark Station 2 sometimes, a long time ago. Then it got upgraded into a Spark Station 10, or a clone of the Spark Station 10. Then it was an Ultra 10, I think, at some point. And nowadays we're running on Intel-based hardware. So we have a dual, what the heck are they called? It's one of these AMD 64-bit processors. Yeah, Opterons with, I think it's 4 gigs of memory and so forth. That's like our primary server at the moment. And then we have, as mentioned, replicated a lot of our like really CPU-intensive services to run on other servers as well. So we're not just like stuck with having everything run on one single server.
And you guys don't remember the days when we had to play in a queue where the... Oh, yeah? Oh, okay. Well, the resources were so limited that you would sometimes sit in this queue waiting to play for up to 2 hours. And that was one of the astonishing things, that people would be grudgingly cheerful about it. And
I think the way it works is because you still allow people to talk, to each other.
Right, there was that queue channel where...
Yeah, they would just sit in queue and talk and leave queue.
Right.
Having, talk to who they needed to talk to.
Right.
So.
And the active players could monitor that channel because they be interacting that way. So, but we've got more robust equipment now, and we were thinking of reinstalling that queue just for nostalgia's sake. And I swear people will go and sit in it and wait to play and cuss out the management and damn the lag and all that.
How much bandwidth are you using right now? With all those players?
The actual MUD itself, without any kind of web content and so forth, I think it eats up, was it 300 kilobytes per second, roughly bandwidth. And that's just pure text.
And 100 kilobytes is Blackstar cussing us out.
One of the reasons it started playing Batman was because there was an actual map and you can actually see where you're going, and it makes the introduction to like the MUDs a lot easier. So I was wondering what the future was in terms of the mapping system, if there was any development going on in that area.
There is.
This is one of my favorite topics since I've been developing different kind of beta versions of new map systems. We've been, first of all, we've been playing around with developing line-of-sight algorithms so that you can, pretty much like NetHack works, for those people who are familiar with NetHack. You only see part of the world that you're moving in and so forth, and walls block your vision. But also we've been looking quite a lot on the new versions of MUD clients that feature a way of doing tile-based graphics for maps. So that maybe one day we should be able to mimic a little bit, like for example how Ultima 5 looked like. So that you have a small graphical map and then the rest of it is text and other information.
Who are you, by the way? Starting Sunday.
But as you can imagine, it's pretty difficult to do, for example, 3D graphics based on like ASCII-based engine. So we're not going to be seeing that very soon.
Actually, Batmud has considerable resources. We've licensed LOL and SFTU, and the royalties we get every time you guys type that on the internet goes right into a private bank account.
Yeah, we're mainly financed by donations. We have a fairly clever treasurer who has understood the value of doing long-based investments as well that generate some additional money to Batmud. But yeah, it's completely based on voluntary donations. Anything else? If not, there's more information about the game. Oh, shoot. I'll give you some Minto tonight. Finnish booze, you know. Yeah. There's more information about the game on Batmud's website, bat.org, or you can easily join the game by just telnetting using standard telnet client to batmud.bat.org.
Is there any consideration in the future for an SSH front end to Batmud? Because if I go to 2600, I don't want to telnet anymore. My username and password for Bat.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we've actually written a beta version of it already, but we just haven't put it into game. And for example, Wizards are able to develop the game using SSH nowadays, whereas previously it was only Telnet. So, all right. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see at least some of you online in the future.